Hey guys, thank you so much for clicking on this video. My name is Chris and I just got done watching Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald. And if you're watching this, you've most likely just seen the movie as well, but if you haven't, please click away guys. This will be completely spoiler filled. I'll be going into the ending of the movie, its major plot points, Easter eggs, and references to past Harry Potter movies that you might have missed. But Chris, you said in your spoiler-free review that you can check out right here in the description or card right above me that you don't know anything about Harry Potter, so how can you give me Easter eggs? Well, that's exactly why I brought along my friend Griff from Men vs. Movies to help me out. He's a major Potterhead, has read all the books, and could just really help me out with figuring some of this stuff out. Griff?
Yeah, so apparently this is brand new to me, but apparently I'm a big Potterhead just because I read the books. But I'm happy to be on here. Thanks for having me on, Chris. It's going to be a great time talking about Crimes of Grindelwald. I know we kind of share similar opinions on the matter, but this is going to be interesting because I don't usually do these kind of ending explained Easter egg videos, so I'm very excited to do something different and delve deeper into a film that I probably wouldn't have otherwise.
So yeah, Griffin will be touching upon the Easter eggs, references to past Harry Potter movies, the names of some of the creatures, while I'll just be touching upon the basic plot points, some of the twists, and stuff that might have been a little bit confusing when you were watching the movie. And be sure to give your thoughts on the movie down below, your theories, your speculation. Always happy to hear from you guys. So this movie does take place 9 months after the first Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. It's 6 months of Grindelwald being in prison. He escapes, but then we jump 3 months later and Newt is in front of the Ministry of Magic and he's being told that he's exiled from international travels. Now I'm sure this puts a real damper on him finishing his book and discovering other creatures. He's told though that the summons can be lifted if he decides to join them in fighting Grindelwald alongside his brother Theseus, who happens to also be engaged, or actually already married, to his childhood love Leta Lestrange. And he refuses that, instead deciding to do it all secretly with Dumbledore's help, played by Jude Law here, who tells him he has a friend, a safe house he can go to where he can help him fight Grindelwald and discover what's going on with him. Basically, the Newt Scamander arc of this movie is him discovering how powerful and menacing Grindelwald really is and his plans for the wizarding world and muggles alike. After losing Leta Lestrange to a battle with Grindelwald, he decides that wizarding creatures are fun and awesome, but he needs to stop this if he wants to eventually capture other wizarding creatures. So he joins alongside his brother Theseus to join the fight. Other arcs in this movie involve Jacob and Queenie. Now their relationship was really beautiful and cheesy in the first movie, and it was confirmed by Jacob that the potion that wiped his memory in the first movie only took away his bad memories. So this left him with only the good ones that he had, which were about 80% of the movie, and Queenie decided to fill him in on the rest. Now their relationship is a little bit rocky right now because in this 9-month period, Queenie has decided to tell Jacob everything about the wizarding world. And this conversation eventually led to that if people find out in the wizarding world that they are together and that they're gonna get married or be together, it can mean she goes to prison, because in the American world of wizarding world, try saying that a couple times fast, this could cause serious punishment, crimes, and bad things to happen to Queenie. And of course, Jacob, loving her, decides, I don't want that to happen for you, so the best thing to do is for us not to be together. It sucks, but it's the best thing. This leads Queenie to putting a spell on Jacob, keeping him in this trance where they'll forever be in love, even if it is by magic. Tina did not agree with her sister doing this, thought it was really wrong and that she's gonna get herself in trouble, and decided to leave and continue on her detective work, which is also why Queenie tore up that postcard of her being in Paris, because she's really upset with her sister and how she decided to handle her manipulating and forcing someone to be in a relationship with her. Shocker, right? But come towards at the end of the movie, Queenie decides that if I really want to be with this person, if I want my life to change, if I want to live my life the way I want to, some people have to die for the greater good, and that happens to be Grindelwald's plan. And she decides to join along his side for eventually having a future with Jacob. And I think this was perfect to seal Jacob as being part of the series, because now I no longer am thinking every time a new movie comes out of, why is Jacob still involved? Now he has a perfect reason to stay involved, because he wants to free Queenie of whatever handsome Johnny Depp spell is on her. And I just say that metaphorically. I know it's not really a spell. She's doing it off her own free will and dumb choice, so please don't at me. Another semi-arc we have is Tina herself. Now she was given very little screen time in this movie compared to the last one, and basically she was given the task throughout this movie to find Credence and bring him over to the good side. He's just sort of a misguided soul at this point, doesn't know where he really wants to go, but he's obviously very dangerous from what we saw in the first movie. But really her arc ends up being that she needs to fall in love with Newt in a nice, natural, romantic way, and the movie really accomplishes that. And they have a little bit of cute moments talking about salamanders, which I really enjoy, even though I'm more of a tilapia guy. Still though, her arc will end, even though she loves Newt, and it looks like they're definitely going to be together, and we all know they end up together from the history of Harry Potter. Who's her boyfriend? More on that later. And the last biggest plot twist of this movie that everyone's a little bit confused about, I know I am, is that Credence turns out to be some sort of blood relative to Dumbledore. Now, through a confusing exposition scene that took place in a graveyard, I'm going to try and break it down as best as I can, but honestly, guys, I have trouble explaining this even after watching the movie a few times. Okay, so basically, as kids, Lita Lestrange, she was taken away from her family along with her mother and forced to be with this other person. Along with this other person, they had a child, Credence. This made Lita Lestrange a half-sister to this baby, Credence. From there on, these siblings are taken on a wizardy boat where I guess magical people get transferred from place to place. And Lita Lestrange, being sick of her baby brother just crying and crying and crying, sees another baby in another room and decides just to switch him out because that's an okay thing to do. However, right as she switches them out, the boat starts to sink. She's grabbed by her maid. She manages to escape with this baby that's a complete stranger to her, but is too afraid to say that she just let her own baby brother die and drown in that boat. So after all this has been revealed, we see that one of her original brothers has come back to hunt down Credence just because of what his bloodline did to his mother and his sister. But after Lita decides to reveal this information that this is actually Credence, I've just been saying it's Credence, I've just been pretending this is Credence because I killed my baby brother. So Ezra Miller's character really has no relation to any of these characters other than Jude Law's, who is Dumbledore. Maybe he has an uncle, an aunt, somewhere along the lines. He's definitely a Dumbledore because we see that Phoenix come out and that's part of their bloodline, so it's not like Grindelwald is lying to him. Aside from that though, we also get the biggest reveal that the reason Dumbledore did not go after Grindelwald himself is because they made a blood pact. Now, I don't think they shy away from the ominous gay relationship going on here. I think they actually did a pretty good job of putting it out there without being really in your face of, hey, we're a couple of gay wizards here. But it's going to be interesting to see what this blood pact is. I'm guessing that if Dumbledore had decided to take on Grindelwald, he would have died. He would have had something bad happen to him or someone that he loves. I'm sure there's big consequences to breaking a blood pact, and it'll be interesting to see how they go about reversing that. I'm going to pass it over to my man Griff, who's going to give you some of the Easter eggs and names of the creatures. So take it away, Griff.
So starting off here with the Easter eggs, we have the Deluminator, which many of you may recognize. It was used by Dumbledore along with a fog spell to speak to Newt in private. We see him first use this in the Sorcerer's Stone or the Philosopher's Stone if you are from anywhere other than the United States. And we see him pass it down to Ron in the Deathly Hallows. Next up, who doesn't love some good Polyjuice Potion? And that is very much present in this film as well. The franchise really likes to come back to this one particular potion, and in this movie, we see fake Grindelwald using it at the beginning of the film to escape, and Newt uses it to impersonate his brother Theseus when he's entering the Ministry of Magic. Next up, we get a little peek at the Sorcerer's Stone or Philosopher's Stone. This is the MacGuffin from the first Harry Potter film. You probably remember it. And in this film, it's seen in Nicholas Flamel's vault, hidden in his wall. And we just see it for a brief second, but it's still a nice little bit of fan service along with the character of Nicholas Flamel, which is very much fan service. So next up, not necessarily an Easter egg, but more so a callback to The Prisoner of Azkaban. We have a young Dumbledore teaching a young Newt Scamander and the rest of the class about how to conquer their fears using the spell Ridiculous. Obviously, they're using it against a boggart, and this is a callback to Prisoner of Azkaban when Professor Lupin is doing the exact same thing, teaching Harry and the rest of the class about conquering what they fear most. Next up, and you've probably seen this in the trailers, we do get a look at the Mirror of Erised, and it shows one's deepest desires, definitely confirming an intimate relationship between Dumble and Grindelwald in this particular film. It also shows them performing the Blood Pact, which is a huge deal later on in the film, which we'll speculate later. And so that's kind of it for Easter eggs. I'm sure there's a whole lot more that I missed and that Chris missed, so let us know if you found more in the comments section below. So now moving away from the Easter eggs and into the new creatures, the Fantastic Beasts. So the first thing we have is Kelpie. It's like this seahorse, seaweed looking thing. There's a really great scene where Newt is riding it. Next up, we got some more Nifflers, and they're not just Nifflers, they are baby Nifflers. Thank you so much, J.K. Rowling, for bringing them back. I absolutely love the Nifflers in this film. There's a great sequence where they're just kind of running amok around the house, and there's an even better sequence where Newt uses the main Niffler to help track down Tina. If you've seen the film, you know what I'm talking about. That was definitely a highlight for me. So next up, we got some demonic cats that help guard the ministry in Paris, France. Now, these are called Madagots, and the cool thing about them is that they multiply when they're threatened or attacked. Something cool that J.K. Rowling did, which she's notorious for doing, pulling from real life mythology in order to create the wizarding world. She does that here with the Madagots. She pulls from French mythology. Next up, we have the Zuwu, which is this giant tiger-looking creature that can travel long distances in short amount of times. It's a huge, huge part of this film. I loved his interactions with Newt, and the great thing about it is, once again, similar to what J.K. Rowling did with the Madagots, she bases the Zuwu off of Japanese mythology. And so the last creature, if you will, on this list, not necessarily a creature, but we've seen it before in other Potter films, is the Fiendfire. So these are flames that take the shape of an animal. We've seen Voldemort use it as a snake in the Potter films, and in this one, we get to see it as a dragon summoned by Grindelwald using the Elder Wand, a la the blue flames. Now, these blue flames are the hottest form of fire, and so the creature does more damage, I guess, if you will.
Really, thanks so much, Griffin, for all those Easter eggs. There was no way I would have captured all that stuff by myself. But for this next section, we're just going to go into a little speculation. I'm just going to ask Griffin some questions. We're going to give our thoughts, see where the franchise could go. So Griffin, after watching this movie, one of the things that went through my mind is Tina's boyfriend. Now, they mention him in passing. Jacob, the character, is the one who mentions him. But we really don't get a name. We don't get a face. And even when we get Newt and Tina together, the name isn't really brought up. So my question to you is, do you think it's someone from Potter lore? My money says that it's an ancestor of Snape.
Yeah, no, I honest to God, I don't think it's anyone. We all know that Newt and Tina are gonna end up together, considering the fact that they both like each other, but they were just like, oh, I think you're with this person, so I'm gonna go date this person. It would be too weird and too forced if it was someone from Potter lore. I just think it's just happens to be someone that she's dating, and it's not really gonna play a huge part in the film.
That makes sense. I just thought it would be poetic justice that Snape, his ancestors, just never seem to get the girl. All right, aside from that, another big thing that's going to get fans talking, I think, is who do you think Lita said I love you to? Now, my money is that it was towards Newt.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, we saw through the flashbacks. I mean, we saw through just kind of their brief encounters that, like, they clearly had the stronger connection. For whatever reasons, it didn't work out, but we clearly see that she has always loved him, and Newt, you know, even despite everything, had always had a place in his heart for her. I mean, the way she kind of said it, it was kind of to both of them, but I think it was really directed more towards Newt.
Okay, I'm glad we can agree on that. I'm sure there's people out there who are hoping it was for Theseus, poor guy. Now, another thing, as a basic Harry Potter fan, I did notice the Sorcerer's Stone in the movie, and I'm guessing the Alchemist is someone important to that. Now, do you think this is a hint to bigger things to come, that maybe this Sorcerer's Stone is going to become a later MacGuffin, and just like the way Rogue One ended, leading us right into the beginning of the first Star Wars movie, do you think it'll lead us right into the very first Harry Potter movie?
No, not at all. I mean, the film is set like so far back. They would have to cover so much ground, and that's not what they're doing here. They're very clearly focusing on a time period that took place like way back when. It's when Dumbledore fought Grindelwald, and that's going to ultimately be the climax of this series. I mean, we haven't even been introduced to like Harry's parents yet, because they haven't been born yet, or like, you know, the rest of the Marauders and stuff like that. There's like a whole chunk of time there, you know, when Voldemort went to Hogwarts. There's a whole chunk of time there that is rich to explore, and I don't think they're just gonna brush over that just to make it connect to the first Harry Potter. It doesn't make any sense to me. So I think they're definitely just going to be focusing on this. The Sorcerer's Stone, it was just an Easter egg. I wouldn't really look too much into it.
No, but I'm happy you did mention that one thing. There's a lot of ground to cover. From my understanding, this movie is in 1927, maybe 1928, since the 9-month jump from the first movie. And we know the Grindelwald and Dumbledore's showdown doesn't go down till about 1945. So do you think there's actually going to be a time jump from the second movie to the third movie, or possibly into the fourth movie?
That's a great question, because I think there will probably be a time jump eventually. I just don't know whether it's going to be between 2 and 3 or 3 and 4. I think it'd be really interesting to like see what's going on in the wizarding world during World War II, because we've already seen like Grindelwald kind of like foreshadow that in his Manson-esque speech there, which I loved, by the way. That was one of my favorite parts of the film. Maybe diving into that a little bit. I mean, yeah, you're right. There's still so much time to cover. I think there definitely will be a time jump. It's just a matter of which film, and I don't have the answers for that. It'll either happen at the beginning of the third one or at the beginning of the fourth one.
Interesting. Okay, well, aside from the movie itself, some of the behind the scenes, now we know the rating for this movie isn't all that great. People are sort of mixed on it. It's more positive than negative, but still, do you think any of this has to do with J.K. Rowling writing the script? I know it really isn't the director's fault. I think he's done a great job ever since he took over, I think, in Goblet of Fire? Or?
No, he took over in Order of the Phoenix, but yeah, I would agree. It's not necessarily David Yates' fault. He's working off of Rowling's script. While I do have issues with Yates' directing in the latter Potter films, I feel like his style doesn't necessarily fit the walls of Hogwarts. I feel like his style lends itself better to being free in the wizarding world, which is why I think his direction, the Fantastic Beasts films, are his best in the wizarding world. Not the best films, but probably his best direction. Truthfully, I do feel like a lot of the problems kind of find their way back to J.K. Rowling's script. I think she's brilliant. She clearly gets the world. She created it. She has great story ideas. And if you look at her as the big picture person, she's perfect. She's doing a great job. But when you look at the actual script itself, she's a novelist. And we see that come through in these films. They feel like we're reading a book, and there's a lot of exposition. There's a lot of subplots going on. It's a little convoluted. There's some plot conveniences and whatnot. And I feel like a lot of those issues are because she's like, oh, I don't have the time to kind of expand on this as much. And then when she tries to expand on some of those things, it just turns into exposition after exposition after exposition.
And I completely agree with you there, because they do definitely feel like books. And there's a reason when her books are adapted into movie form, a lot of stuff is cut out, and it still turns out to be a great movie. So I think you're right there, having a screenwriter attached to help her out with some of the navigating of telling the story, because she definitely got the world down because she created it. But I do think she could benefit from more storytelling in movie form. Okay, and the last thing I'll leave you on, we can obviously tell the third film, if they go around to making it, which I'm pretty sure they will. These movies tend to make a lot of money. We'll probably consider all around the Blood Pact, how they can break it, what are the consequences of it, what happens if Dumbledore actually goes and attacks him while that Blood Pact is going on. Aside from that though, how do you feel about the reveal about Credence being a Dumbledore line? Now, some people are saying that he's not a direct brother, more of maybe like a cousin or a distant relative, just has the Dumbledore name.
Yeah, that it's kind of tricky, because like when I just saw the ending, I was just kind of like, oh, okay, that's interesting. You know, I'm not the biggest Potter expert, honest to God, I really am not. And I know that like Dumbledore has siblings and stuff like that, and obviously Credence isn't one of those siblings, even with his proper Dumbledore name. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I'm very curious to see how that's gonna pan out in just kind of like a story fashion. I mean, clearly Grindelwald has him and will probably use him as leverage against Dumbledore when it gets to that point. Probably use him as a, well, not even probably, just use him as a weapon. But the reveal was interesting. I don't know if everyone's gonna dig it. Some people might feel like it feels a bit forced, which I get. But at the same time, I thought it was cool and a nice way to tie back into Dumbledore and Grindelwald's relationship, because I think ultimately that's going to be the heart of this prequel series, as it should be. I really don't have too much to say on the matter. I wish I could bring more expertise to the table, but that's about all I got.
Hey, you're fine, Griff. I'm sure there's a lot of fans out there who do have speculation, have theories, but again, I just really want to say thank you to my guest Griffin for helping me out with making this video. There's no way I would have been able to make it, but you guys out there love Harry Potter, love that world, and I didn't want to be the one to deprive you of that. So go ahead and check out his channel. He's got some great stuff there, great reviews.
Yeah, dude, no, thanks for having me on. Seriously, it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed talking about this stuff with you, even though Chris really thinks I'm a bigger Potterhead than I really am. I just read the books and saw the films, but I guess that makes me an expert on these things. Who knows? Like Chris said, if you like me and everything I have to say, you can go check out the Men vs. Movies channel. We do movie reviews weekly. We got a bunch of podcasts, all that good stuff. You can give me a follow on Twitter personally at Griff Schiller, and you can go like the Men vs. Movies Facebook page. Follow us on Twitter simply by searching Men vs. Movies.
Be sure to like and subscribe to this channel, however. Follow me on Twitter at 3C Film Review. As always, I'm Chris. Take care.